Hey y'all, welcome in. Yeah, thank you for taking the time. Um, can we get started? Are y'all cool with that? Everybody have what they need? Okay, let's do it. I'm gonna start off by introducing my really good friend here to my right. Man, I'm gonna read your bio word for word. I'm not gonna like add any ad libs 'cause I'll get emotional. This is Amarie Gipson. She's a Houston born writer, editor, and founder of The Reading Room, an independent reference library anchored by a collection of more than 800 books on Black visual art, culture, and history. The Reading Room hosts free public programs from saloons to film screenings and educational workshops, all designed to promote literacy, cultural enrichment, and critical thinking. Gipson has held curatorial positions at various art institutions, including the Studio Museum in Harlem, the Art Institute of Chicago, and the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, and we're happy to have her back in Houston. Her writing has been independently published in Arts Black, Art Forum, Art News, Burnaway, Essence, Oxford American, and many others. She has also served as the arts and culture editor for Houstonia and was the first Houston editor at large for Burnaway, an Atlanta based publication that focuses on art criticism in the US, South, and the Caribbean. In 2024, she was awarded AICA USA's Irving Sandler Award for New Voices in Art Criticism. Gipson is currently working on her debut collection of essays on Black contemporary artists from Texas. Wow. It's different reading it. Like I see you and I experience you, but wow. Amazing. Abundant.
Thank you, Mo. I feel very similarly, and I'm going to introduce Mo, my very, very good friend. We're so happy to be here. Thank you all for coming out this Saturday morning to join us to think about Satchel's exhibition. Mo Nikole is a Houston-based Black lesbian sonic curator and archivist who's dedicated to amplifying Black voices, stories, and legacies. Through her intentional, undiluted focus, Mo creates spaces where Blackness is remembered, celebrated, and preserved through Black Woman Music, which is a living archive dedicated to listening to the voices of Black women in music, and Black People Church, a fellowship space honoring the Southern Black aesthetic through sound and community programming. Mo is also a very talented writer, researcher, scholar, and a lighthouse in my life. I'm happy to be here with
Thank
you.
you. That's so sweet.
So unfortunately, Satchel couldn't make it. She had some extreme travel delays and has been trying to get to Houston for the past 48 hours, and is on her way to Japan in the next 24 hours. And so she sends her love to Sharonda, the whole HFTC team, CAM team, and everybody that's here today. I'm going to read a snapshot of what the exhibition is about. I'm assuming everybody in here has seen it or spent time with it. Hopefully, the space is open after we conclude our program so that you can walk through and see it. And I think the dates have gotten extended, so we have a little bit more time to live with the exhibition. Where we find ourselves is a multidisciplinary investigation into memory, place, and Black perception across generations, centering the historic neighborhood of Freedmanstown in Houston. Through photography, film, architectural modeling, and installation, artist Satchel Lee brings a forensic intimacy to the project, placing the South, and specifically Freedmanstown, under a microscope. Lee reveals the physical remnants of a once self-sustaining Black community founded by formerly enslaved people and the brilliance embedded in its spatial and spiritual architecture. So shout out to Satchel for bringing us here.
Yes. Hey, Satchel.
Hey,
She's going to
Satchel.
be
We
watching
can't wait to see you
online.
again.
Thank you for having us. And this is obviously we're surrounded, so her spirit is very much with us. Yes.
And we've saved her a seat in the front, too.
Yes.
So she's with us. Today, our intention is to reflect on some of the themes in the exhibition from both a sonic and a literary lens. Mo has prepared a soundscape for us, a listening experience. So you'll see an eye mask in your chair that is intended to give us a more immersive experience. So when we start to listen, we ask that if you're able and willing to cover your eyes and really allow yourself to be present in the sound. Afterwards, I'm going to read a short essay that I've written that's inspired by home. And then we're going to talk about both of our processes. At the very end, we'd like to open up to hear from the very curated selection of people who are in the room, who've been invited to weigh in, because we want to hear your voices too. So we'll pass the mic around for any reflections, questions, and meditations on what is presented today. Is that okay? Y'all down with that? Fantastic.
Does everybody have a mask in their chair? Okay, cool. Yes, to Amarie's point, it's an exercise on active listening. And it's actually something that while I was working on this project, I had to close my eyes because when dealing with this preservation work, there's so much that we don't see and it can be hard to remember, but yet through listening, we can still be preserving and we can be memory workers. So yes, thank y'all for participating. I'll load it up and we'll get started with the sonic experience, which is about 13 minutes. Cool.
Y'all better know I love Mo because I put on makeup today. And I'm smushing my lashes underneath this mask. I love you, Mo.
That was done to us in the houses. Nobody never said too much about that, and nothing was done. But let something be burned, by a black man. And then, my God, as we know, this country was built on the black backs of black people across this country. And if we don't have it, you ain't gonna have it either, because we gonna tear it up. That's what they saying. And people ought to understand that. I don't see why they don't understand that. They know what they've done to us. All across this country, they know what they've done to us. This country is desperately sick, and man is on the critical list. I really don't know where we go from here.
Find you now. Hallelujah. Wonderful Savior. None like you. None like you. None like you.
Town to my family was a new beginning. My family did not come from the Galveston way. My family actually came from Matagorda Bay, the same way that Jack Yates' family came to Freedmanstown. So this community has been fighting for decades to basically hold on to what we have. And so as a community, we have done everything. We have literally protests. We've laid in the brick streets when they have removed the bricks. We've got in front of bulldozers. I literally had to go get 50 of my community members to stop contractors from taking the bricks, because as we understand it, that the bricks are our foundation to our community. There has been so much synergy and energy toward dividing us. And so what can we do to get together?
are my people, lending their strength to the years, to the gone years and the now years and the maybe years. Washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging along, never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and the strength of final clenching be the pulsing in our spirits and our blood. Let a race of men now rise and take control.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Barbara Jordan.
There appears to be a general apprehension in the country about the future. That apprehension undermines our faith in each other and our faith in ourselves. Undermines that confidence. The idea that America today will be better tomorrow has become destabilized. But we will not die. We will change, but we will not die. We need to change the decaying inner cities from decay to places where hope lives. But I want you to listen to the way I have entitled my remarks. Change from what to what? From what to what? As we undergo that change, we must be prepared to answer Rodney King's haunting question. Can we all get along? Can we all get along? I say we answer that question with a resounding yes. Yes, yes. We must, by a devotion to the public interest, public service, tolerance, and love. Love.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, Lord, keep on talking, Lord, marching to the freedom land.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Wait, I know this is a show, but you have to actually sing this song. You can never tell when you might need it. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land.
I'll tell you what freedom is to me. No fear. I mean, really, no fear. If I could have that half of my life, no fear. Lots of children have no fear. That's the closest way, that's the only way I can describe it. That's not all of it, but it is something to really, really feel.
Have you like,
No.
I've noticed.
Like a new way of seeing. Like a new way of seeing something.
And we are still here.
That's it, y'all. Y'all can unmask. My heart is beating fast. I was not expecting that. I was getting a little emotional.
Were you masked?
I wasn't. I had my eyes closed so I can do a little bit of the controlling, but I had my eyes closed when I wasn't, peppering with that.
Yeah. I feel like I left here,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that was the intent and purpose
Yes.
of covering up. How do you
Yes.
feel sharing that?
I'm really shaky. I feel really shaky and emotional, which is I wasn't really expecting, because obviously I've heard this so much, but I think the domestic sounds of the frying pan, the walking, the breathing, the holding your breath and then exhaling, I think this is maybe the first time that I exhaled with what I'm listening to. And it feels like I've been holding my breath for years. So it's making me a little emotional. Yeah.
Thank you for making this, and thank you for sharing it with us here. I have so many questions, and I'm wondering, should I ask them or should I read? What would you prefer?
Read.
Read?
Let me get my spirit together.
Okay. I'm not going to put you on the spot yet.
Yes.
Wow. I really do feel like I left here. I felt the same way when I first heard it.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it went by so quickly.
Yes, you said that. That was the feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I settled into being present in the sound.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so beautifully mastered that I was just kind of flowing with wherever you were taking me.
Yeah. Thank you for surrendering in that way and
Yeah.
trusting, because it's so easy to like fidget around and move around and kind of wander your attention. And of course, we can kind of close our eyes, right? But I think the mask itself kind of creates a different type of boundary. You know, I mean, for me, who's I'm anxiety driven, kind of ADHD a little bit, kind of always going off in my mind. Meditation
why
can
we
kind of be
friends.
kind of scary. Yeah. So thank you for participating and for allowing yourself to settle in. And I'm eager to hear at the end, when we open the floor to everyone else, just how masking yourself while listening impacted, if it did at all. So yes, thank you.
So I'm going to read a short essay that I've written in response to the major themes in Satchel's exhibition and just Mo and I's time thinking alongside Satchel about Freedmen's Town, about ownership, about authority, sovereignty, power. And the essay is entitled, "This House is Mine." I've been dreaming about my childhood home. Some mornings I'd wake up in a panic, others with a hollow feeling of grief and frustration, sometimes even joy. The house had always been a place of contention for me, perhaps because of how far back in time the memories within its walls actually stretched, because of how many people in my family had come and gone, back and forth, in and out. Maybe it's because I spent my entire life fighting to get away from it, to find my home elsewhere, somewhere I felt seen. Perhaps it's because the house had always been there, a constant presence for me and everyone I love, our headquarters. Or maybe because one day it may no longer be. I was raised by my maternal grandparents. My grandfather grew up in a large sharecropping family on Choctaw land in Pelahatchie, Mississippi. My grandmother, a deep East Texan, moved with her family to Florida as a teenager to escape the threat of racial terror shortly after the locals threatened to harm her widowed mother. My grandparents met in Florida at a Christian summer camp conference in 1954. And after 2 years of long distance travels, letters, and Southern courtship, they married in the fall of 1956. I sat on the phone with my grandfather recently as he reflected on what drew them to Houston from Pelahatchie. The two of them had heard many stories of promise in Third Ward and Sunnyside, where Black people built businesses and had beautiful homes. They rode the second wave of the Great Migration, and in 1957, just 6 months after they got married, they packed up the rented one-bedroom in Pelahatchie and moved to Houston. My grandfather was 19, going on 20, and my grandmother was 4 years his senior. He was preceded and welcomed by his older brother, who had trailblazed the Gipson family's migration to the city and secured my grandfather a job at Blue Ribbon Packing Company. In 1964, 7 years after they arrived, my grandfather bought a house on Sydney Street. That year marked a pivotal moment in American history with the signing of the Civil Rights Act by then President Lyndon B. Johnson. Houston quickly began to remove its visible signs of segregation. When my grandparents moved to Sydney Street, there was only one other Black resident on the block, Mr. Smith. Everyone else was white. I wondered if he had felt welcome, if they had experienced any trouble or felt any tension. He tells me that while the neighbors were mostly polite, my grandfather was sure that they didn't actually care to dwell near Black people, evidenced solely by their immediate flight out of the area. The neighborhood continued to change. On the phone, my grandfather laughed as he remembered his excitement and what I imagine was his relief, finally having a home for his family after years of renting and moving around the Southeast Side. I thought about what it meant to not only be able to move more freely throughout a rapidly desegregating city, but also to make strides in one's own family history by owning a home and the land underneath it. How triumphant, how corrective it was to make that decision, and how admirable and immense the labor required it truly was. My mother, their only daughter, was a year old when they moved to Sydney Street. It was a single-story home with 2 bedrooms and a lofted area that they converted into a third for their growing family. The exterior has seen countless coats of paint blue, yellow, green. The front yard had a garden that grew my grandmother's flowers, my grandfather's greens and okra throughout the decades. He lined the backyard with sugarcane and a fig tree. After 8 years at Blue Ribbon and 3 years at a trucking company, he spent more than 20 laboring tirelessly on the waterfront as a longshoreman. At 6 in the morning, he traveled to the ship channel and filed into a large hall where hundreds of men lined up to be assigned to ships. He had worked there for 4 years before securing enough seniority to get better assignments. He and his coworkers were in no small way the heart of Houston's development, loading and unloading the goods that arrived in the liminal space between land and sea. But it was not without risk. He tells me about seeing his coworkers fall off of shipping containers into the bayou, the water reclaiming their battered bodies, how he watched a man drop dead on his break due to heart failure, and how another lost his head in an incident. It was no doubt dangerous work. He described how he'd have to rest himself before he could even muster the energy to take a shower and go to bed at night. At 55 years old, he finally retired, and today, 61 years since its purchase, the house still stands. The house on Sydney Street provided solace and refuge. It was the destination for my cousins before and after their night shifts, classes, doctor's appointments, or court dates. There, my grandmother raised her kids and others from the neighborhood, fed them, disciplined them, prayed over them. For me, the house was a source of shame. It was a physical reminder of everywhere that I wanted to go and how I felt like I could never get there. At some point in our conversation, I finally mustered up the courage to ask him, "Papa, why do you insist on staying in this house?" He knew what I implied when I asked him, so he paused and he said, "Because it's mine." For years, he had heard his children and grandchildren plead with him to move somewhere new, somewhere where the foundation wouldn't buckle beneath him or where the cool air came from the ceiling rather than through the window, somewhere the roof isn't being eaten away by rats, somewhere where possums and squirrels feel discouraged to curl up and die, sending the fragrance of their rotting flesh into the air. But when you own a home, there's no one to complain to, no landlord, no property manager. It's your responsibility. It was his responsibility, and he owned it. But hearing the conviction in his voice made clear to me that being there was not just about the house. Legally owning the structure that protects your body, provides you with shelter, spiritual grounding, and peace of mind in a world that has denied you sovereignty over your own body, your own flesh, is no small feat. Despite its inevitable decay, the spirit of survival the house represents is far more significant than its physical state. It's far more significant than my shame. I realize now that those dreams that I was having were messages coming from the house itself, calling me back, urging me not to run away from all that it has endured, begging me to bear witness to its resilience. I realized that the house was a testimony to his labor, her labor, his sacrifice, their sacrifice, none of which has been made possible, of course, without my grandmother, who tended the house as best as she could before her health declined. She passed away last November, and the pleas for my grandfather to move almost immediately ceased. We knew he'd never leave a place where he felt closest to her. I began to ask myself, is the absence of this place in my tangible world enough to make me advocate for owning it myself, to take on the architecture of my family's trauma, of our family's joy, of our splintering? When I hear him reflect on his life, I think about all the ways our homes beckon us back to witness and remember, to confront the pain or disappointment that lives alongside the joy and the sacred protection that has carried me, you, and us through this life. That's it. That's all I wrote.
Because it's mine.
Because it's mine.
Wow, Amarie, thank
So
you so
keep
much
all
for
that
sharing.
because it's mine.
Because it's
That's why I'm here.
Because it's mine. Wow, that was beautiful, and visceral also. Um, and I'm curious from here forward how it looks for your relationship to change with the dynamic of the house after witnessing it in a different way. And shout out to Papa.
Shout out to Papa for being willing to answer all my little questions that I was asking him.
I'm sure he was happy.
He was so happy.
Yeah, my granddaddy, when I asked him, he got a little gold tooth, his little crown, and he be cheesing from ear to ear when I ask him any type of question, just any type of curiosity and interest, and put it somehow in my work or the things that I'm doing. And so this is legacy. This is preservation. He's here, even though he's not physically here with us right now in the space, but able to tell his story through you, his granddaughter. So
He's very proud. He
yeah.
thinks I'm very smart, and he feels smart because of it, which is perfect.
He is very smart.
He
I mean,
is.
it's a proven concept. Let's talk about it. You want to
Yeah.
dive deeper into all of this?
I want to talk about sound.
Okay.
Because we have to backtrack, of course, right?
Okay.
I want you to tell me about the process of assembling every single piece of sound that you put into this soundscape,
Yes.
every voice, every element.
Yes. Okay.
Why?
Oof. I'm going to try to make it make sense to y'all like it does in my head. It was really in response to Satchel's exhibition where we find ourselves. And there was something specific that she said in some of the press prior to the exhibition opening. And it was a concept of time stacked on top of each other, the past, the present, and the future kind of all colliding. And the black backdrop of some of the 3D model kind of represents like that void between. I hope I'm getting that right, Satchel, but I was like, wow, okay. So what does that sound like? And what does Freedmen's Town sound like? Like, how can I create an indestructible archive, like a sonic body of work, like an altar that can't be bulldozed? I didn't grow up in Freedmen's Town. My family is from Louisiana, and my grandparents live in Sunnyside, Texas. But I started to dig deep and think about erasure and displacement in my own personal relationship to the homes, the shotgun homes in Louisiana, and also the small home that my grandfather currently lives in now, and he's had for 60 plus years with my grandmother who passed 2 years ago. And so I just went back to my inner child and thinking about how we would wake up in the morning. It was like the smell of my grandmother, who was 104 when she passed. She was always making okra, and she would make supper at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So by the time we waking up, I'm like smelling okra and like turkey necks and like maybe gumbo and all of these things that it was just so visceral. And I would hear her moving about the kitchen, turning on the stove, putting the grease in the frying pan, talking to the cats, her little stick or cane or walker, the house made so much noise without anyone speaking, especially like the creaking and the cracks. And I used to be scared of it when I was little because it seemed like it was haunted. And I didn't want to go into the restroom by myself because my family was Black Catholic. So they had all these like Mary, Jesus posters and things like that. And they look scary when you're a little kid. So all of these things contributed to just like my shaping of what a kept house feels like. What does a kept house sound like? What does an unkept house sound like? And so, yeah, I did my best to think about this mix, not so much as music either, but sound. And like, what can I also gather from the silence, the removal of sound? So I went deep into the archives. I first started looking into blues women of the Gulf Coast. So Sippy Wallace, Victoria Spivey, Barbara Lynn, Irma Thomas, Big Mama Thornton, the Barrett sisters, the Davis sisters. And I started piecing together this project that was almost 30 minutes. And it was just a lot of hooping and hollering and singing and lyrics and all of these things. And I was like, wow, this is not doing it. Like they're saying they're doing what they're supposed to do, but they're not doing what I need to do in terms of creating the house as a vessel for memory through sound. And so I went back, I started over, I scraped it all. And I also think it's important for me to note that I had this vision of creating this body of work in response to this exhibition. And y'all, I had no clue how I was gonna do it. Like, I didn't know the software, the tools, nothing. Like, in my past, I've done the DJing, the sonic curation, but what I was doing with this specific project, how I had the vision in my head, was going to require a type of production that I had no experience with. So imagine me pitching something to a museum and saying, like, I'm gonna do this thing, but I have never done this thing before. And I think in that, my ancestors and my spirit guides was like, trust the path, trust the vision, and possess anyhow praise. You may not know how this is going to actualize, but trust the anyhow praise and trust that we got you. And so, yeah, I went back into my research, and I just knew that the sound body itself was rooted in remembrance, resistance, grief, and joy. And so I just started to collect a bunch of sounds that I felt like could translate that sonically.
And you took an excerpt from Satchel's film.
I did.
With Sharonda talking about Freedmen's Town.
Yes.
Why was it obviously important to pull directly from the exhibition source material?
Yes, it was very important, and it was specifically important for me to revere Sharonda in this way because through my brother Mitch, I found out about Freedmen's Town. And I met Sharonda on one of the walking tours, and I just was blown away with like her passion and the way she spoke, in the way like it was like every molecule in her body was like devoted to this preservation work. And with this specific sound project, everything that you heard was only scored or composed by Black women as part of my Black Woman Music life's work. And so it was really important for me to start the story with Sharonda and in the story with Sharonda, because I was just so drawn to how passionate she was, and I had to have her in the mix. Mm-hmm.
Another key part, there's so many key parts, first of all. But one of the things that resonated most with me was hearing Barbara Jordan's voice talk about the destabilized hope that we have in the nation. It felt so incredibly resonant right now. And thinking about the collapsing of time, right? And the cyclical nature of history and how it seems like we can never get far enough away from what we used to be and where we used to be because we somehow keep ending up back here.
Yes.
Pause on that one.
Yeah, we keep ending up here. It was disheartening actually to hear relatability in what Barbara Jordan was saying.
What year is this?
92,
right.
At the Democratic National Convention in 92. And I'm like, wow, this is like really relevant, and I'm heartbroken that it's relevant to now. Even Fannie Lou Hamer, that was in the 60s, and it's still relevant to now. One of the tracks that I used was Bernice from Sweet Honey in the Rock, and this was in 2010 at the White House with President Obama, and she was singing, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. And I felt so much hope, and that was in 2010. And then to fast forward to now, and I'm finding relatability in Fannie Lou Hamer talking about, and Barb talking about the destabilization, it's like, wow, we went backwards in the midst of like going forwards. So yeah, there was a lot of grief in that realization once I put this amalgamation of sounds together on one board.
I also feel deep gratitude to them for naming things that we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
As disheartening as it is to experience it, to live through it, to witness, we're not without support because of what they endured and the way that they articulated what was happening then. It gives us language for right now.
Yes.
And that holds me. It holds me.
It does. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Like I think a lot of this is like forecasting. And that's why I found the value in preservation work, because I don't need to start from scratch. I just need to remember. And that memory keeping helps me to go forward and to not feel so hopeless because, you know, what are we doing? So yeah, I feel that same holding. And I just have a special affinity in this work for Black women in music and sound, because I grew up with the Black women being the memory keepers. They kept the house, they kept the faith, and I really admire that and carry it forward in my life. Yeah.
I'm glad that you named that, because when I was thinking about how this essay shaped up my grandfather's experience and his retelling was at the center of how I was understanding my relationship to my family home, because I was raised in that house, right? My mother was raised in that house. Everybody lived in that house. It was too many people in that
That's
house
why
at one time.
they got
to be
that
in
house so everybody can be in that house.
But everybody didn't need to be over there.
Everybody can't
was
really be in that house.
Right.
It's a safety thing, I think. But, I mean, on paper, it don't make sense.
It's too many people in here. But I appreciate you saying to me, we're not actually on opposite ends of the spectrum with your centering of Black women and the forward nature, I suppose, of my grandfather's voice, because my grandmother was at home more than he was.
Yes.
And so the spirit of that house very much is her.
Yes.
And perhaps why he has such a closeness to it, beyond the legality of owning it, beyond the labor that he put into like saving money. He said he was paying $8 a month in rent in Pelahatchie. And that was difficult to do because he was only making $25 a week. And when he moved to Houston, their mortgage on the house was $73 a month. And he had no idea how they were going to make that happen. But he was determined and so grateful to finally be able to buy a home.
Yes.
Something that, I mean, is probably completely unfathomable to my great-grandfather.
It wasn't set up like that.
It was never set up
designed
like that.
Yeah.
Right? Only a few generations removed from slavery. Owning a home.
Yeah.
You own the home.
Yes.
Like your name is on the paperwork. It's something I think we take for granted today.
Absolutely.
But the reason why I brought that up was because I'm thinking about my grandmother's spirit and the tending and mending that made that a place where everybody felt like they can come and take a nap in between shifts.
Yeah.
Or come and spend the night.
Yeah.
Or people coming to visit. This is where they landed on Sunday afternoon after everybody got let out of church.
Yeah.
Because the pots are already on the stove.
It's ready.
It's ready to eat.
It's ready to be eaten. And, you know, one of the things that I, in the beginning of the sound mix, you kind of hear the pot, you know, you kind of hear the domestic sounds of keeping a house, and then it kind of fades out towards the end. And to me, that kind of represents the absence of the physical bodies, right? When we're thinking about the destruction and the erasure, the absence of the physical bodies are no longer in the house in a way, but the spirits are embedded in the wall. And they continue to live through the instrumentation, through the atmospheric sounds. It's eternal. When my grandmother was sick and they were transporting her and she was going into the hospice phase of things, she was so eager to come back to her house. And she was at the house. They were like, oh, you know, she'll probably have a couple days, couple weeks, whatever. She was at the house for maybe 20 minutes before she took her last breath. And I just remember her face. She seemed so satisfied being in her house versus her face when she was in the hospital. And I was like, wow, she really came over here so she could, she could transition in her house. And that was very important. And so all of this has just shifted my perspective on ownership, like you said. It doesn't feel possible for me to own a home right now in this economy. Like, I think there's a part of me that just kind of blocked that out, and I'm like, okay, I'm okay with renting, and even though I'm not really okay with that. But this project, I think, just reshaped something in me. And I want to, more than anything, emphasize preservation of my lineage and my legacy, even if that's taking better care of my grandfather's house, taking care of the houses that are already built and have already seen. So, yeah.
I think that's something that's been called to my attention as well. It's like,
Yes.
What would it mean if this place continues to come to me in my dreams? Like, there's this movie that I watched called Black Box.
That sounds scary.
It was not the best movie.
Okay.
There was a part of the movie, the reason why I'm thinking about this film is because it's a film about dreams. And there's a place that the main character continues to return to whenever he's dreaming. And it's like this psychic safety place. Don't go watch the film. But the reason why I'm thinking about it is because there's, in your dreams, I think, unless I'm the only one that's experiencing this, there is a place that we dream about over and over and over again, somewhere that we felt safest, or maybe the least safe, or it continues to come to us, and we cycle in and out of it. I'm in different rooms in these dreams.
Yeah.
My grandmother is there, or they're not there, or maybe in my dream, part of the house is here, part of another house is there, and I continue to return to it, and I have wondered why for several months.
The house has been calling you.
It's been
Did the house
calling
know
me.
you were doing this? I wonder if
I don't know, perhaps, but I had just started to feel like it's somewhere that I should consider in possibility of owning or tending to in the same way. Maybe it's my turn to do that.
Yeah.
Because you say home ownership feels absolutely impossible and not a priority right now.
Right.
Of course. Imagine what it felt like then.
I know.
Absolutely impossible, because it literally was.
Yeah.
Until it was possible.
Right.
And so I'm only feeling that now, even though the priority is not to buy a home.
Yes.
Or to renovate a home. But I'm sitting with whether or not I can live up to the expectation or answer the call to do that.
How much of that reoccurrence of the dream impacted your curatorial process or your process for research or approaching your essay?
I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I finally had to just ask the question and find a way to ask the questions in a non-judgmental way. Because home ownership doesn't seem tangible to me, doesn't mean that it wasn't incredibly important to my grandfather, to the people who own homes in my family.
Yeah.
And I don't think I had ever sat down to take the time and think about why it was so critical.
Yeah.
And how monumental it was. Because people got houses left and right.
Yeah.
For the most part, right?
Right.
And so the conversation, I couldn't even get myself to go to the house to sit and have the conversation with him.
Wow.
Because I wanted to be able to listen and not feel distracted.
Yes.
And after having the conversation, I feel like being there, I can be a little bit more open, and I can really savor what's left of it, because I don't know if anybody feels the same way that I do or understands how my grandfather feels about the importance of the home. Because I think he is prepared to give it away, to say, just sell it after I'm gone, because he doesn't want it to be a point of conflict for people, because who's going to get it and who's going to take care of it?
Right.
He would rather sell it and know that his plan is being finalized than leave it in limbo.
Yeah.
And watch people kind of fight over it, I suppose.
That's so, because the same thing happened with my great grandmother's home, and it just, as soon as she was gone, it was just like, it's gone. And no one really cared in the family it was a headache. It was a a money guzzler, and no one really cared about how this house has like raised and shaped us. In fact, there's like a photo of my great grandmother, my grandmother, my aunt, her daughter, and then there's 5 generations on one porch before she passed. And it's like, wow, how do you just, it'll always be her house to me. Even when we go back to, I see it and I'm like, this is my mom's house, but she's not in there, but she's everywhere. Yeah. I want to know more about your process though, like your approach, what you shared with me yesterday about talking to your grandfather, and just like how, when you made the decision that he was going to be the centerpiece for this essay. I'm really curious about that.
I think I leaned into him because it had always been easier to talk to him than it was to talk to my grandmother. And now that she's no longer here, I suppose that she's speaking through him in some ways because he has an increased tenderness and an extra level of patience and care. And he's more willing to be vulnerable than he used to be because he's a hard man. He's a very hard man. And I mean, getting him to be emotional about anything is unlikely. But I'd like to think that I bring that out of him as well. Um, talking to him, and sort of reading around his experience. He never named any of the trauma that he might have experienced, that I know he experienced in Mississippi, and the tension of growing up in a state like that. He never named that in '64, that's when the Civil Rights Act got signed. He never named that as a significant thing. He sort of, I think, was sort of moving through life as best as he could, wanting to treat people as best as he could, no matter what color or creed they were. But he was still very aware. He protected his neck no matter what. And so kind of reading between the lines in those experiences made me realize that they're probably very difficult to name. And it's my responsibility, I think, to fill in the gaps in that history, and build out that larger context. And so I just sat down, but like I usually do. It's been very difficult to write lately. And I want to give a special shout out to a writer who's from Houston, Texas. Her name is Sasha Bonet. She has completely changed the way that I think about writing. She just put out a book called The Water Bearers. It's her debut memoir, and it's about Black matriarchy. And she tells the story of her grandmother and her grandmother's home and her mother's home and her home. She's also a mother. And through the lens of her family's history, she tells the story, paints a portrait of American motherhood. And I started to think about that book in conjunction with the way that Satchel imagines Freedmen's Town story. It's singular and it's unique, but it's also an American story.
Exactly.
And so I think the same way about my grandfather's experience, my grandmother's life, and their relationship, their migration, their sacrifice, their labor, their tenderness, and how it's a reflection of how we all live with one another.
Right.
In our families, in our homes, in the places that we used to dwell.
Unique but universal in a way. Difference but sameness. That's really sweet. Thank you for sharing that.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us here. So I don't do this for recognition. I don't care if you all never know my name. I love my community, and I just want the future generations to actually know how great we can be. And it's so much that has happened to this community for decades. And the fact that we are still here, we are thriving. And I don't want to focus on what we lost because we have so much to build on in the future. And we have so much legacy, so much history here. And it doesn't matter what color you are connected to Freedmen's Town. And I'm just asking everyone to find your roots, find your connection, and come on home. Amen.
We want to extend deep, deep, deep thanks to Houston
Yes.
Freedmen's Town Conservancy, the Contemporary Arts Museum team,
Yes.
Satchel, our dearest angel who brought us here, Mitch Stevenson, the curator of this exhibition. Who else we want to thank? My granny, my papa. I want to thank everybody. I want to shout out Yellowstone. I want to shout out everybody.
And for y'all also,
And for
everybody, for taking time and being here. And man, thank the ancestors and the spirit guides, seen and unseen, known and unknown, for always keeping and believing in us. We got to believe in each other the way they believed in us, right? So thank y'all so much.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Have a wonderful Saturday.